Kevin Costner is the kind of Hollywood legend America does not easily replace. Frank Farmer in The Bodyguard, Ray Kinsella in Field of Dreams, Lieutenant John Dunbar in Dances with Wolves, and John Dutton in Yellowstone. Men carved from loyalty, grief, and stubborn honor. He rose from ordinary roots to build some of the most unforgettable images in modern American cinema. But the man who spent his life protecting families, dreams, and wounded souls on screen could not keep his own life from breaking. 2 marriages collapsed, homes divided. Children learned to live between doors. Fortune, aging, and one last impossible dream called Horizon now press against him harder than applause ever could. The world remembers the hero. Kevin Costner still has to live with the man left behind when the role ends. Honor him with a like and subscribe as we uncover the pain, sacrifices, and unfinished chapters behind the man the world thought it already knew. The first wound in Kevin Costner's life was not fame, failure, or heartbreak. It was absence. Kevin Michael Costner was born on January 18, 1955, in Linwood, California, the youngest son of William Bill Costner and Sharon Ray. Bill began as a ditch digger and later became a power line technician. Kevin later said, "You can learn a lot more by what a man does than by what he says. I just watched how my father did things." Sharon, a social worker, carried other people's pain by day, then returned with tired hands to make each rented room feel safe. Their money was tight, but the house held love. Yet 2 years before Kevin was born, in 1953, the family already carried a loss no parent fully lays down. His middle brother, Mark Douglas Costner, lived for only a single day. A crib had been prepared for a child who would never grow into it. A name entered the family and became a room no one could enter. Bill grew stricter, as if discipline could keep fate from knocking twice. Sharon grew quieter. Kevin was too young to understand that hush, but children feel what adults try to hide. Cardboard boxes became the furniture of his childhood. By 12, Kevin knew the rhythm of leaving. Compton, Ventura, Visalia, Orange County, each town offering a beginning and taking it back before it could become home. The Costners were chasing work, stability, and one safe place that would last. Every move meant another classroom where no one knew his name, another schoolyard where friendships had formed without him, another unfamiliar bedroom. He would later remember those years as packing, leaving, and starting again before anything felt permanent. He learned to guard his inner world because the outer one kept changing its address. He was not the loud boy who conquered a room. He watched from the back and saved words for paper. When the family car pulled away from a street he barely knew, Kevin sat with a box against his knees, watching the old house shrink in the rear window until distance swallowed it. He did not make a scene. Belonging could vanish with a new job or a tired decision at the kitchen table. What might have made him bitter slowly taught him endurance. A late growth spurt carried him to 6'1", but the deeper growth happened where no one could measure it. He sang in church choirs and wrote poems about open skies, second chances, and land that did not move beneath his feet. His father's discipline became a compass. His mother's faith became the ground under it. Years later, reflecting on being used to beginning again, he was naming the training of his life. Every packed box carved patience into him. Every farewell taught him to listen harder. When Kevin Costner later stood in a cornfield, crossed a wide plain, guarded the fragile, or searched the horizon for a place worth defending, audiences believed him. They were not watching invented strength, but a childhood transformed into presence. The boy who never knew how long he could keep a home became the man who built worlds where others could feel they belonged. The first prison Kevin Costner ever felt at 23 did not look like failure. It looked like a paycheck, a clean shirt, and the approval of the people he loved. In 1978, fresh from California State University, Fullerton, with a marketing and finance degree, he did what a responsible young husband was expected to do. He took a steady job, silenced the part of him that wanted more than safety, and carried the pride of a man afraid to disappoint his family. Yet office walls made him feel as if he were disappearing from himself. His heart belonged to stories, open land, wounded men, and lives only he could imagine. Then, flying home from his honeymoon in Mexico, Richard Burton heard the fear he could barely say aloud. Kevin admitted he wanted to act and feared he might never be worthy. Burton gave no sermon, only a brief reassurance about their shared green eyes and a wish of luck. At the airport, Burton's limousine waited, while Kevin and his young wife waited for a bus. The contrast could have crushed him. Instead, it opened a door. Within weeks, Kevin quit the job that made everyone else feel safe. He packed a suitcase, a second-hand jacket, and fear into a battered Datsun, then drove toward Los Angeles with barely enough money for gas. What followed was cold rooms, empty pockets, tired hands, and pride swallowed one day at a time. He scrubbed boats until salt and diesel clung to his skin, drove delivery trucks, and gave tours past movie stars' homes, wondering if his own name would ever belong in that city. When the heat failed, he stayed dressed and waited for morning. He carried headshots softened by sweat, left photographs with casting assistants who barely looked up, and walked miles to save bus fare. On rainy evenings outside studio gates, Kevin sat behind glass, close enough to see the dream, still locked outside it. Hollywood erased Kevin Costner before it allowed him to be seen. A classmate from acting lessons mentioned a tiny beach production that needed bodies more than names, and Kevin showed up barefoot, sunburned, and willing to work. That became Sizzle Beach, USA, his first screen break, and almost immediately, a humiliation. Cheap, awkward, released years later, a beginning that arrived with a sting. Still, the deeper pain was invisibility. For 6 years, he auditioned, waited, and disappeared. Then came the wound that could have ended him. He won a role in The Big Chill, the chance an unknown actor prays for. At the premiere, he waited alone for his moment. One scene passed, then another. The credits arrived like a quiet verdict. His scenes were gone. His name, his face, his proof that he belonged had been removed from the frame. Kevin returned to class, to work, to showing up without guarantees. A dream did not open doors for him. It kept him standing long enough to knock again. In 1985, Lawrence Kasdan, the same director who had cut him from The Big Chill, called him back for Silverado. This time, when the camera found Kevin Costner, it found hunger, rejection, and 6 years of refusal. The applause was not luck. It was the sound of a man Hollywood had erased in pieces, stepping back into the frame whole. Glory did not crown Kevin Costner. It came to collect a debt. After years of trucks, boats, and casting rooms where no one truly saw him, Silverado reached theaters in 1985 and changed the air around his name. The forgotten man at Hollywood's edge carried warmth, danger, humor, and a truth that did not feel performed. The Untouchables gave him more than a $100 million success. It gave him respect. Bull Durham revealed his bruised charm, while Field of Dreams turned him into the man in the cornfield who built because he believed. Pressure became obsession in 1990, when Kevin, at 35, decided acting alone was not enough. He formed TIG Productions, mortgaged his own money, and forced Dances with Wolves into existence, a 3-hour Western that allowed the Lakota language to breathe on a Hollywood screen. Studios wanted it shorter, faster, safer, but Kevin protected the quiet because it carried the film's soul and the dignity of people history had pushed aside. The budget climbed to $22 million. Storms damaged sets. Actors left. In a freezing trailer, with wind rattling the walls, he faced the question every dreamer fears. Was this courage, or had belief become arrogance? Then, the impossible happened. Dances with Wolves earned $424 million and won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Kevin later admitted, "I came out feeling I just have to do better." Yet behind that thunder stood a man privately unsure of himself. Triumph looked golden from outside, but up close, it was exhaustion wearing a tuxedo. Fame kept feeding him and cutting him. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves took in about $390 million, while critics turned his accent into a joke. JFK placed him inside a national firestorm. Then the Bodyguard arrived. He waited a year for Whitney Houston, chose profit share over a $10 million salary, and watched it earn $411 million, with more than 50 million soundtrack copies sold. By 1993, he was making $10 million per film, yet barely sleeping. Then Waterworld became a public trial. Hurricanes tore through sets, costs climbed to $235 million, and filming put him in danger while tied to a mast. The press branded it Kevin's Gate. 2 years later, The Postman collapsed under criticism and swept the Razzies for Worst Picture, Worst Actor, and Worst Director. The hands that held Oscars now held headlines, turning ambition into a punchline. Yet Kevin returned to smaller films, quieter stories, and westerns few others would risk. Glory's debt did not ruin him. It revealed the dignity of a man who could lose the crowd and still keep the work. Emptiness did not strike Kevin Costner like thunder. It arrived as a phone that rang less, a room that no longer waited, and a Hollywood that had moved on. After public failure, the town that once crowned him began looking through him, calling him a relic of the 90s and turning risk into ridicule. Kevin did not waste strength answering every insult. Some judgments must be outlived in private. Yet mockery was not the deepest wound. Purpose was slipping away. He could live without applause, but not as a man with no story left to tell. Beneath hard sets and sleepless years, one need remained: to create again. Aspen gave him the quiet Hollywood had taken. Walking alone under a cold sky, Kevin was no longer asking why the crowd had turned away. He was asking why he had needed it to feel whole. From that winter came Open Range in 2003, a modest western made for $26 million that earned $68 million and gave him back his voice. It was not spectacle begging for approval. It was a man breathing inside his own art. In 2018, at 63, he became John Dutton in Yellowstone, a wounded patriarch guarding land, blood, memory, and what time tries to take. America believed him because the pain in his face no longer looked performed. Yellowstone drew 16 million viewers, and by season 5 he earned $1.3 million per episode. Then came Horizon, an American saga, the dream that had lived inside him since 1988. Studios called it too long, too quiet, too expensive. Kevin made it anyway, mortgaging his home and investing $38 million of his own. In the Utah desert, heat pressed down and exhaustion carved into his face. Yet he kept the cameras moving because the story had not finished speaking. When the first chapter premiered at Cannes in 2024, critics divided, and the box office returned only about $38.7 million. Yet as the final frame disappeared, Kevin stood like a man no longer waiting for the world to save him. At 71, he proved an artist can lose the crowd, risk everything again, and still walk toward the horizon, because the story inside him refuses to die. The first woman who believed in Kevin Costner would also become the one who paid most quietly for his rise. In 1975, at California State University, Fullerton, he met Cindy Silva, a young actress in training who saw him before success did. Kevin was 20, restless, and chasing stories no one else could see. In 1978, they married with little money, a borrowed ring, and the brave faith of youth. Cindy worked while Kevin chased auditions that ended in rejection. Before Hollywood believed him, she did. When Annie arrived in 1984, Lily in 1986, and Joe in 1988, fatherhood gave his dream a heavier purpose. For a while, life looked whole. Children's laughter, and a home worth every hard year. Success did not break the marriage at once. It emptied it by inches. The Untouchables, Field of Dreams, and Dances with Wolves lifted Kevin into Hollywood history. But each triumph carried him farther from the life Cindy protected in Ventura. She raised 3 children through missed birthdays, while the world saw more of her husband than his own table did. At the 1991 Academy Awards, Kevin stood under golden lights as Dances with Wolves became legend. Cindy watched from home, near sleeping children, proud enough to smile, and far enough to feel the cold through the screen. They tried counseling, but distance had learned the shape of their marriage. Divorce came in 1994, after 16 years, under the phrase, irreconcilable differences. Cindy's side reportedly sought nearly $160 million, and the final settlement was said to be roughly $80 million, with no prenup to soften the fall. Cindy received the family home and custody of the children. Kevin kept his company, knowing no paper victory could restore ordinary mornings. The cruelty was smaller than headlines: boxes, signatures, a calendar split in two, and 3 children learning that home now had 2 addresses. Money could be counted. Lost breakfasts and bedtime voices could not. They chose kindness after the wreckage, co-parenting because their children still carried both faces. Cindy believed in the man before the world wanted him. In the end, the world got the legend, and their home paid the price. After Cindy Silva, Kevin Costner did not fear loneliness most. He feared leaving another child to carry it. 2 years after his marriage collapsed, he kept moving through film sets, airports, and cameras because stillness made the rooms feel too empty. Then, in 1996, Bridget Rooney entered that wounded season with a gentleness that asked for no performance. An heir to the Pittsburgh Steelers legacy, raised in privilege, yet remembered for grace, she met him at a charity event in Aspen. Their connection was brief, sincere, and human. Not a grand second chance, but 2 people finding warmth after loss. From that fragile chapter came Liam Timothy Costner, born in 1996, a child who would matter more than the romance itself. When the news surfaced, Hollywood turned private uncertainty into public noise. There was initial doubt, and a DNA test later confirmed Kevin's paternity. But the defining truth was what he chose after it. He accepted responsibility, arranged support, established a trust fund, and made sure Liam would not grow up wondering whether he belonged. Kevin understood the quiet damage absence can leave in a child, so he did not treat Liam as a headline, a footnote, or a name to hide. He treated him as a son. By 1998, Kevin and Bridget had gone separate ways without the spectacle that often follows celebrity love. Bridget later married businessman William Koch, while Kevin kept his promise through visits, support, gifts, milestones, and the choice to let Liam grow beyond fame's machinery. Their love did not last, but Liam did. And for Kevin, that became the only ending that mattered. A son who would know he had been chosen, protected, and claimed. Some romances leave heartbreak. This one left responsibility, and in accepting it, Kevin found a quieter grace. Peace came to Kevin Costner, looking like a second chance, which is why its collapse cut so deeply. When he met Christine Baumgartner in 1998, he had known divorce, distance, and the cost of ambition. She was 20 years younger, a model and handbag designer, whose calm softened the restless force that had carried him for decades. They separated in 2002 when she wanted children and he feared starting over, but he later understood losing her to fear would become its own regret. On September 25, 2004, they married at Dunbar Ranch in Aspen, beneath white tents and mountain light. For nearly 19 years, that home looked untouched by sorrow. Caden arrived in 2007, Hayes in 2009, and Grace in 2010, filling the ranch in Santa Barbara with movie nights and the laughter Kevin had spent a lifetime trying to protect. For a while, the man who played protectors seemed to become one. But paradise does not always break loudly. Sometimes it thins through missed breakfasts and unfinished talks, while one parent sets the table and the other chases a promise. By the early 2020s, Yellowstone kept him on location, while Horizon consumed his time, savings, and peace. Christine wanted presence. Kevin believed he was providing. Between those two truths, love lost oxygen. In May 2023, Christine filed for divorce, and private grief became public paperwork. A prenuptial agreement shaped the end. Her lawyers sought $248,000 per month in child support. The court later reduced it to $63,000. She was ordered to leave the Santa Barbara home where their children trusted mornings to last. Photos of Christine with Josh Connor became tabloid fuel, proof of nothing final, yet painful enough to bruise trust. By early 2024, the marriage was legally over. The cruelest loss was not money or property. It was fatherhood divided, weekends split, laughter between houses, a kitchen light no longer meaning everyone was home. Kevin filmed Horizon, while his own horizon changed behind him. 7 children, 3 mothers, and 1 heart, still trying to build meaning from many homes. Christine taught Kevin Costner that the hardest world to protect is not on screen, but in the eyes of your children. Grief waited for Kevin Costner, in the place fame could never reach, the quiet debt he owed his parents, Bill and Sharon. They were not people of spotlights or grand speeches. They built their family in small homes that smelled of soap, work clothes, and sacrifice, where a folded paycheck on the kitchen table carried more meaning than applause. Bill dug ditches, repaired power lines, and came home with dust in his hair and steadiness in his hands. Sharon spent her days as a social worker, listening to other people's pain, then returned home, determined that her own children would never feel poor in tenderness. From them, Kevin learned the 2 truths that shaped him before Hollywood ever did. Work must be honored, and kindness does not need to be loud to last. Cruelest of all, the story he could tell for millions was not the one he could finish for them. When Sharon became ill, Kevin was far away, pulled by the career his parents had helped him believe in. Cameras, contracts, and premieres surrounded him. Yet a mother's voice still reached him with the simple tenderness of a prayer, reminding him to rest, to keep going, to take care of himself. Then the call came while the lights of work were still burning around him. She was gone. He did not arrive in time to hold her hand or hear the final words a mother saves for her son. At her service, standing beside his brothers, he had to become brave for the woman who had spent her life being brave for everyone else. He had learned early that a man is measured more by what he does than by what he says, and losing Bill made that truth feel permanent. 2 years later, grief returned for Bill. The news found Kevin alone in a hotel room, his phone glowing in the dark with the kind of message that divides life in 2. He had missed his mother's last breath, and now his father's as well. At the funeral, with rain in the air and cut grass underfoot, he looked at the casket and remembered the hands that had built fences, fixed toys, paid bills, and quietly shaped the man the world applauded. Afterward, fame felt strangely weightless. Movie posters, wealth, praise, and public admiration could not replace the 2 voices that had made the world feel steady. Losing Bill and Sharon so close together hollowed out a place no award could fill. Perhaps that is why, in the years that followed, Kevin's stories seemed to turn softer and more reflective, filled with fathers and sons, land and memory, goodbyes that lasted too long, and forgiveness that arrived late but still mattered. He had spent his life chasing the horizon, only to learn that every horizon begins at home. Sometimes, standing beneath the wide sky of his ranch, one can imagine him carrying the same quiet truth. He made it, but not without them. The world taught Kevin Costner how to shine. Bill and Sharon taught him why the light mattered. The cruelest truth in Kevin Costner's bond with Whitney Houston was that the man who became her protector on screen could not protect her from life. When Whitney passed, on February 11, 2012, at only 48, the world mourned a voice that had lifted churches, healed lonely rooms, and made love sound almost eternal. But for Kevin, the loss reached somewhere quieter. She was not just the woman beside him in The Bodyguard. She was a friend, a fragile brilliance, and a soul he had believed in when Hollywood still hesitated. They first met in 1991, when he was seen as steady and she was seen as untouchable. Yet both understood the loneliness hidden inside fame. Whitney had never acted before, and some executives questioned whether audiences would accept her in that role, especially opposite him. Kevin refused to move forward without her. He waited nearly a year, not because it was convenient, but because he saw courage beneath her fear. On set, protection became more than a character choice. Whitney arrived shy, luminous, and uncertain, carrying the pressure of a voice the world adored, while wondering whether she could truly belong in film. Kevin helped steady her, encouraged her after difficult takes, eased her nerves, and gave her room to become more than a singer, stepping in front of a camera. Between scenes, they spoke about faith, home, fame, and the strange burden of being loved by millions while still feeling exposed. When The Bodyguard premiered in 1992, that trust became immortal. The film earned more than $400 million, but Whitney's voice in "I Will Always Love You" turned the movie into memory itself. The world saw chemistry. Kevin saw bravery. Years later, as the brightness around her grew harder to hold, he watched from a distance with the helpless sorrow of someone who cared but could not reach far enough. Then came the call. Whitney was gone, found alone in a Beverly Hills hotel room just hours before a pre-Grammy event. Around the world, radios returned to her songs. Candles gathered outside churches, and strangers stood still because it felt as if an era had closed its eyes. Kevin, stunned by the news, was left with the ache of a promise life had made impossible to keep. At her funeral on February 18, 2012, inside New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, where Whitney had first sung as a little girl, Kevin stood before her casket, with millions watching, and spoke not like a star, but like a man saying goodbye to someone he had once tried to shield. He gave that truth back to her in words the world never forgot. "Whitney, if you could hear me now, I would tell you, you weren't just good enough, you were great." He spoke of her doubts, her fear of not being ready, and the faith he had placed in her from the beginning. When he reached the words tied forever to their shared history, the room seemed to hold its breath. It was not performance, it was grief finding the only language it had left. In the years that followed, he rarely spoke of her without tenderness. When The Bodyguard turned 30 in 2022, he returned to the truth that mattered most. The film endured because Whitney's heart was real. For the world, her passing marked the end of a once-in-a-generation voice. For Kevin Costner, it was the wound of a sacred promise. He had protected her in the story, but life had written an ending no bodyguard could stop. Time did not defeat Kevin Costner with noise. It came quietly, through aching joints, slower mornings, and the price of a body spent telling the truth on screen. At 70, age is no longer a number for him. It is a daily negotiation between will and weariness. The world remembers the sheriff, the cowboy, the bodyguard, the man who looked unbreakable beneath harsh sun and western skies. What it rarely saw was the actor limping home after punishing days, wrapping sore knees before climbing back on a horse, and carrying pain not for vanity, but because the story still mattered. Waterworld left him burned by the elements and placed him in real danger on the water. Open Range demanded the kind of physical commitment westerns rarely forgive. Hidden Figures tested him with kidney stones so severe he needed strong medication, yet he kept working. Every role gave him something. Every role also took something back. Now, the same body that carried him through deserts, storms, ranches, rivers, and sleepless sets bears the cost of devotion. Cold air in Aspen can make old injuries speak again. The back remembers every fall. The shoulders remember every hour under equipment, pressure, and sun. He moves more slowly, but there is still intention in every step. At Dunbar Ranch, he rises early, walks the paths he once shared with his children, watches the horses breathe steam into the morning, and keeps moving, because stopping has never been his language. Even as Horizon demands long days under brutal heat, he continues to direct, act, edit, decide, and endure. Those around him have seen the fatigue in his face, but also the refusal in his eyes. For older fans watching from quiet homes, there is something sacred in that refusal. Kevin Costner has become a mirror for anyone whose body has grown heavier, but whose spirit still reaches forward. Late in Aspen, with the sky turning gold and his hands resting on a fence rail, he looks less like a fading star than a man memorizing what remains: land, breath, faith, family, work. He knows strength does not stay young forever, but meaning can. His final masterpiece may not be a film at all. It may be this: a man slowed by time, marked by pain, still facing the horizon as if life itself were whispering, "You are still here. Keep riding." At 71, Kevin Costner no longer looks like a man chasing wealth. He looks like the boy from Linwood, who once learned that a home could disappear with a packed box and a road leading somewhere unfamiliar. Born to a ditch digger and a social worker, raised among moves, modest rooms, and streets he never fully kept, he built a life now estimated at more than $250 million. Dunbar Ranch in Aspen, the Santa Barbara estate, and the wide private spaces around him may look like luxury, but in his story, they feel more like a reply to childhood instability than a display of success. Yet the deepest truth is not what he owns. The boy who had no fixed home grew into the man who built stories for millions. Cornfields where fathers returned, plains where dignity survived, and western skies where broken people searched for belonging. Still, life did not spare him the loss of the heart's own places. Marriages ended. Families changed shape. Children grew between different houses. That is the haunting circle of Kevin Costner's life. He built entire worlds on screen, yet learned that even beautiful roofs cannot promise forever. What remains is the grace of a man who kept building places for others to feel less alone. What finally defines Kevin Costner is not the land he owns, the fortune he built, or the awards that still carry his name. It is what he chooses to give back after surviving so much. Over the years, he has supported causes tied to Parkinson's disease research, children's hospitals, women's shelters, and first responders, using even the privacy of Dunbar Ranch to raise money for people with far less. For him, money has never been the final proof of success. It is only a tool, and tools are meant to build. Between Aspen's stillness and California's sun, he now lives closer to the things time has proven sacred: work, family, memory, and the distance he still refuses to stop crossing. At 71, Kevin is the father of 7 children, each carrying a different echo of the life he fought to hold together. Annie, Lily, and Joe from his first marriage, Liam from a later relationship, and Caden, Hayes, and Grace from his most recent marriage. Annie, born in 1984, became a film producer and built her own path through Fierce Studios. Lily, born in 1986, inherited his artistic sensitivity through music. Joe, born in 1988, stayed close to film through production and sound. Liam, born in 1996, has lived more privately, protected from the noise that too often surrounds famous families. Caden, Hayes, and Grace, born in 2007, 2009, and 2010, remain the younger lights of his later life, still tied to ranches, horses, home movies, and quiet rooms where laughter can make time feel merciful again. In those moments, Kevin is not an icon. He is simply a father watching pieces of his heart walk around outside his body. Pain still follows him. Old aches, the memory of injuries, the kidney stone ordeal, and the fatigue of decades spent under sun, pressure, and expectation. Yet Kevin still wakes early, writes, directs, dreams, and carries Horizon, an American saga, as more than another bid for applause. It is the work of a man who has already known praise and ridicule, marriage and divorce, full houses and divided homes, and still believes stories can give shape to what life has broken. Behind the wealth and the legend remains the boy from Linwood who once learned that belonging could disappear with a packed box, a new job, and a road leading away from everything familiar.